Hello again. So the South African rand sank to its lowest level since October last year after the discovery of a COVID-19 variant described as the most concerning so far. The decline was led by hospitality shares, which fell sharply. We discussed the effects of the announcement on business and the economy at large. We're joined by Chairman of Business for South Africa Steering Committee, Martin Kingston. Martin, a pleasure to be in conversation with you this afternoon. So just a little bit earlier on today, my colleague Malungelo Boy is at the OR Tambo International Airport. He interviews a travel agent, and in ending the conversation, he says, well, this will bury the industry, literally saying that after this, it will be 6 feet underground. Should there be an announcement by the National Coronavirus Command Council that South Africa will be put into harsher lockdown, can we survive this economically?
Well, good afternoon, Dudu. We are very concerned, obviously, about the emergence of the variant and about the very restrictive measures that have been imposed on South Africa by countries around the world. We actually do not believe that there's any need for us to put in place as a country more restrictive lockdown measures, and we engaged with government as recently as yesterday on that, and we very much hope and expect that when the President addresses the nation, he'll provide that reassurance. We know that our economy is now in an extremely fragile state, particularly certain sectors of the economy, as you've said, such as the tourism, leisure and hospitality sector, which need every aspect of support that can be provided under the current circumstances. So we don't think that it's either necessary or appropriate. There are other measures that certainly need to be taken within South Africa to try and limit the impact of the virus and of the pandemic, but it's not going to be, in our view, appropriate or necessary to impose more severe lockdown restrictions.
Are you at liberty perhaps to share with us what happened in that meeting yesterday? You speak of other measures. What could those be?
Well, we were speaking for and on behalf of business with our social partners at NEDLAC. Government was represented in that engagement, of course. First and foremost, we need to recognize that one of the problems that we have in South Africa is the very low level of vaccination, particularly compared to other countries around the world. We're about 35% of the adult population fully vaccinated, 25% of the total population. When we look at some of the measures that are being imposed internationally to encourage vaccination and to restrict movement, they're at 75%, 3 times as much vaccination. So we've got to boost the vaccination rate. The way that we do that, in our opinion, and these are the submissions that we've made, I believe that they have the endorsement of most of our social partners, is restricting access for people who haven't been vaccinated, basically to anything other than essential services, for example, being grocery stores, police stations, and of course, hospitals, places where people can get attention for their health. But everywhere else, we think people should be denied access unless they can demonstrate. The second is the imposition of vaccine mandates. We've been calling for that both within the business community and elsewhere. We've seen a number of companies starting to put in place vaccine mandates, most of them effective from the beginning of next year. But universities as well are beginning to announce it, not just for those who work at the universities and students, but also service providers and visitors. We think that that also will significantly increase the level of vaccination. And thirdly, the non-pharmaceutical interventions that we've all become accustomed to, but I think that we've become lax as a society. So social distancing, mask wearing, and of course ventilation, particularly ventilation in closed spaces. And the last recommendation we've made is that we should restrict the number of people who are allowed to gather either within closed spaces, it was increased to 750 people, or open spaces, increased to 2,000 people. We think that should also be now significantly reduced to the lower levels. Now, none of that has, in truth, any significant impact on economic activity. In fact, we think it encourages economic activity, provided that people are prepared to get vaccinated, and it'll give the reassurance that's necessary that we're putting in place appropriate measures. We've got 18 months of experience now to deal with the latest challenges that are confronting us.
You echo the sentiments of Dr. John Nkengasong of the Africa CDC during a press briefing. I posed that question to him, of lockdowns, and he said the time for lockdowns is over. We should rather capacitate people and increase testing. Of course, this was before the announcement of the new variant. Now, when we take a look at the knock-on effect it's had, for instance, we're reporting now that the rand has dropped to its lowest level since October last year. What drives markets? And please forgive my very simple curiosity.
Yes, well, I think that we see a sort of an overreaction by all markets. I would argue we've seen an overreaction by many of the countries in respect to the measures that they're taking, because people extrapolate. They assume that actually we're going to see an extension of those sorts of measures elsewhere, as we saw last year. Let's remember, last year we saw our economy contract by 7%, more than any other comparable economy in the world. We saw 2 million people lose their jobs. About 400,000 were able to get their jobs back, swelling obviously the ranks of the unemployed. Again, incomparable to any other country that is comparable around the world. And people are nervous that we're going to see a return to that type of performance. It is absolutely not going to be the case. We need to provide the requisite reassurance. And once again, the President and other leaders, not only from government, from social partners, organized labor, civil society, and indeed business, should be providing that reassurance both domestically and internationally. Then I think we'll see the rand stabilizing and confidence returning as soon as we can demonstrate that we've got an appropriate plan of action to deal with our current circumstances.
Martin, just finally for us, in one of the recommendations you made in the meeting with government yesterday, you mentioned that perhaps business needs to make sure that people are vaccinated. Now, that conversation has divided society deeply, with people saying, well, how do I balance my right to, having the right to make a choice and keeping my job because now business is forcing me to get vaccinated? Your thought on that?
Well, you're absolutely right, and businesses have an obligation to try and persuade all of their employees as to the benefits and merits of being vaccinated. I think the science is absolutely clear, but it's understandable that people should have concerns and reservations, and it's everybody's right. The President has stressed this as their constitutional right to have freedom of choice, but not at the expense of endangering the health and security of their fellow workers or others with whom they associate in the workplace. And businesses are within their rights. In fact, they have an obligation to provide that reassurance. In fact, the rights of many trumps the rights of an individual. It doesn't mean the individual can't work from home if that's practically possible within the workplace concerned. And we've got occupational health and safety regulations that we negotiated with government last year that were announced by the Minister of Employment and Labour that already provide for exactly what we're talking about. It's simply a question of applying it on a larger scale. But the most important thing is to try and persuade everybody on their merits, on the merits of the benefits of vaccination. And I'm confident, again, that we're going to see a rising tide of businesses and indeed institutions outside of business beginning to embark on that process.
Martin, there's a lot of panic, there's a lot of tension, perhaps just even outside of your position, just a South African, or on a human-to-human level, your word to somebody who's feeling anxious because of everything that is going on right now.
Yeah, so I think it is absolutely understandable that people should be anxious. We need to be very confident that we have the best quality scientists actually in the world. We've put in place all of the structures and facilities in our healthcare system. I think we've got an unrivaled level of collaboration between social partners and particularly between government and business. And we all want to achieve the best outcomes in these difficult circumstances. One of the ways of sure that we look after the health not only of ourselves but of everybody around us by getting vaccinated. I am very clear, assuring everybody that that's not only possible but desirable and indeed achievable in the relatively short term.
Martin Kingston, a great pleasure, Chairman of Business for South Africa Steering Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much.